Okay, everyone, we are going to go ahead and get started. I've got top of the hour, 9 o'clock here in Pacific time. So, depending on where you're at in the world, we're right on schedule. So, this is kind of the unique lighting product overview. I want to thank you all for coming. I know it's Friday morning and kind of in these crazy times, but thanks for taking your time to join us today. I have with me on the call Jai Musselman. He is our business development manager out of our Florida location. He's going to be monitoring the question and answer box. So as I run through this presentation, please feel free to um, just type in some questions. Jai will answer them on the fly for you. If it's something that we need to discuss further, he'll jump in and kind of stop me, and we'll go ahead and kind of talk about that sort of stuff. And then I'm going to leave some time at the end of this presentation for questions as well. So I'm also recording this session. So for those of you who would be interested in getting a recording, please feel free to email me at the end of this. I'll forward you a link to that recording. You can share that with anyone that may have missed it, or anyone within your organization that would be interested in watching. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started as we roll through. So first, I'd like to introduce myself to all of you. I'm Brian Qualls. I'm the National Business Development Manager for Unique Lighting Systems. I've been with the company for 9 years, so it'll actually be 9 years in June. And before that, I was a landscape architect. In fact, I still carry my landscape architect's licenses today. And still kind of call myself a landscape architect in certain circles. But just kind of, let you guys know that I've been in the landscape industry pretty much since college, since before college. And before I came to Unique Lighting Systems, that's all I specified as a landscape architect. So I've got a pretty good knowledge base behind it, and kind of just that's who I am, and we'll just go ahead and kind of roll through it. So the first thing, let's talk a little bit about unique lighting. So company's actually been around for just over 25 years. We created and patented the hub system. We're going to talk about the hub system a little bit later in this presentation. And yes, we still find it relevant, even though LEDs have become mainstream. And we've really built our business through extensive training programs. So for those of you who haven't, we've been, for the last 3 weeks, we've been really focusing on doing these webinars. We've got plenty out there. I've got more coming next week in regards to design, engineering. We did a photography one this week, which we're rerunning next week, which was pretty phenomenal. And that was how to kind of not so much take pictures, but how to set up your shot so that way you can create a good scene to build a portfolio, or have your contractors kind of build a good portfolio to show customers and things like that. We'll do anything as on the training. So one things that we offer that I'm really proud of is what we could do is kind of what's called an install a day. So for any contractors out there that are new to lighting, or even new to unique lighting, our reps will come out to your job site. The day that the product gets delivered, we'll come out and actually train on the job training, train through that job. We find that this is much better than trying to get guys into a classroom, taking them off your project, taking them off the job. And it just, when you're doing it, rather than in a classroom situation where you're doing it for real, the teams tend to retain the information a lot more. So if your crews are quick and they pick up on how to do this in an hour, then our people are in and out in an hour. If it takes all day, they'll spend all day. So we call it an install a day. If you haven't heard of that before, but please reach out to us if there's any opportunities for us to do any of those types of trainings. We're happy to do it. So what separates unique lighting from the competition, from everyone else that's out there? So first and foremost, depending on the fixtures. So all of our brass and copper fixtures come with a 25-foot wire lead. So that I'm getting. Can everybody hear me? I'm hearing someone's. Oh, are you muted automatically? Oh, that's the question that came through. Yes, Orlando, if you want questions, you got to type them in the question and answer box. Okay, so what separates us from the 25-foot wire lead on our brass and copper fixtures, that lends itself back to the hub and Intellihub system, which we're going to talk about it as we roll through. The other thing too, with those hubs, we have the mechanical connections, and as I talked about the on-site and off-site training, and we're going to talk about our design support as well that many of you may not be aware of. We actually will help contractors and designers design their lighting projects. In addition to 25-foot wire leads, for those of you who know, we do have an aluminum line that has a 15-foot and a 1-foot lead that goes with it, and we'll talk about that as well as we go through. So, kind of as a breakdown, and I get this question quite a bit, kind of where the differences are. So we really have now kind of, you know, 3 lines of fixtures with a subset of the elements line, and so it goes kind of in that order. So Odyssey, our Night series, Elements, and then Elements Brass, which is kind of an offshoot of Elements. So our Odyssey series, that is our top of the line. That is a cast brass fixture. It's got a lifetime warranty, and we'll talk about that as we go through. The Knights is still either solid copper or solid brass with a 15-year warranty, and then our Elements is our aluminum line, and then obviously Elements brass. And then with us, the support products, you know, we are Unique Lighting Systems, so everything's offered through Unique Lighting, from fixtures, LEDs, transformers, our control system, hubs. We even have our own line of wire, so we can offer, you know, basically a full package. So we do have 500-foot rolls of wire that we can sell through our brand as well, and then that can be part of the project. So that way, if there's a job package that you want to just put everything on one order, you can get everything done just through Unique Lighting. So let's talk about Odyssey a little bit. Odyssey, like I said, that is our top of the line. It is our cast brass construction. And what's nice about these is that you get the designer lenses attached to them. This is the only line in the Unique Lighting family that comes with those designer lenses. So there's, you know, a frosted, a dimpled lens, blue lens. They all have kind of different needs for them. Probably the most 2 popular ones that are used today with the LEDs are either the frosted or the blue lens. Kind of changes the look of the light. These fixtures all come with a 25-foot wire lead and a lifetime warranty. So how these are made, what's really great about these is that these are, like I said, it's a cast brass construction, so it's a solid mold. We're taking, you know, hot molten brass and we're pouring them you know, into a mold, and then that's how we're making it. So since it's a solid mold, it's not a sand casting. Our tolerances are there. So, you know, let's just take the pulsar, for example. If something were to happen to that shroud and had to get replaced in the body, you know, the whole fixture, let's say it's 18 months old, that shroud that you get from us to replace it will fit that body because we set those tolerances. Other manufacturers that are out there that are using a sand casting, the tolerances may not be there. That, you know, over time, you know, it's off just enough, and that's not a knock on the manufacturers. That's just the product of sand casting, of how that process works. So we've gone to the solid casting to make sure that we keep those tolerances, and the products will always kind of fit together as they go through. Another way that I tell my customers, you know, why solid brass or what's the difference? Well, you know, if I were to take this pulsar and literally throw it, you know, onto a piece of concrete or throw it onto a paver, I'm either going to chip the concrete or put a crack in it or something like that, maybe scuff the brass a little bit. And this is not a coating. I mean, this is solid brass all the way through it. So if I cut that or scratch it, there's brass underneath. It's not going to corrode. It's you know, it'll just weather over time. And so again, if I were to take that and throw that on the ground, I'm going to hurt the concrete more than I hurt that fixture. So these products here really, really lend themselves to that specification grade type project. So, you know, if it's a high-end residential, light commercial, where we know this thing's going to get beat up by line trimmers and lawnmowers and maintenance guys that are just running through this whole thing, these are going to stand the test of time all the way through. As I move down the line, we go into Knights. You know, Knights are still either solid brass or solid copper. So this is, you know, again, it's not a coating. So if you scratch this, it's going to be brass or copper underneath. But these also come with a 25-foot wire lead. but it's a 15-year warranty. Now, the reason why we're putting a 15-year warranty on these is that this is a machined brass. So you may have heard it as spun brass or a stamped brass type of deal. So this is exactly that. It's kind of more of a sheet metal, if you will. And the difference is if I were to take this Intrepid and take that shroud and throw that onto the concrete, or the pavers like we did with the Pulsar, I'm actually going to dent this fixture. This is just a different manufacturing process. So this will dent rather than cutting or chipping the concrete. But again, solid brass, solid copper all the way through. There is one exception, and I don't want to confuse anyone, but there is one exception out there, and that exception is the Noble. So the Noble is our newest fixture, and this is one of the better. If you haven't seen this fixture, please get one and take a look at it. Call your rep. It's probably one of the better fixtures we've got, or the newest ones, in the fact that we've actually designed this one around the LED. So it's a lot smaller body, but this one's CNC'd. So it's actually a CNC'd brass. So for those of you who don't know what CNC is, the best way I can explain it is we took a block of brass and then cut away the negative parts to create this. What's great about that, it's kind of like laser cutting, is then there is really the tolerances are spot on this fixture every time, because it's done by a computer and how it gets cut to where it's at. So again, this one we are really, really proud of. It's a great little bullet light. It's a good compact size, but it still holds an MR16, so you still get that great output as you go through it. But again, only has a 15-year warranty, still 25-foot wire leads, but you don't get any of the designer lenses with it. And you can try and sneak them in. There's really not room for them. If you want to get into those designer lenses, then you'll have to go back to up to the Odyssey line that's out there. So. Elements brass. So I'm kind of going a little bit out of order what we were talking about before, but this is kind of our newest line. So this again is our quick, ready to go. And you know what? I just thought of something before I get too far. Let me go back a little bit here. So back to our Odyssey fixtures. The other nice thing about the Odyssey fixtures is, and this is new, this is kind of why I forgot about it. The stakes all come with a brass insert inside the threaded top of the stake. So where this threads into, it's actually going into a solid brass collar, a threaded collar. So it gives it that more stability. You're not going to get any stripping or anything like that. And then that stake also has a slot in it. So if you ever were to, need to remove it, or you want to put the stakes in first and then put the fixtures in, you don't have to fish 25 feet of wire through the stake. It'll just slide right through that slot. So that's kind of another addition to the Odyssey, where the Brass Knights doesn't have that slotted stake or the brass. The Elements brass, that's our newest. This is a 10-year warranty. So again, I'm kind of sliding down that scale. Again, it's still machined brass. These are only available in pre-lamped options. So you can't, get a positron with a 3-watt or with a 5-watt. It's only available in a 4-watt. It's our most limited line. But this is kind of more of your ready to go kind of entry level contractor, someone that's really new that is learning, and it's there to hit that price point. These are actually fantastic fixtures. There is no compromise on quality on these. It's just, again, we're doing a little bit different manufacturing process to get us to that price point that kind of gets the people that are new, that want a quality fixture, but they're kind of new to lighting and still trying to figure out. So Elements brass kind of fits that need. But again, very limited. And in fact, this is the entire line. We've got a path light, up light, wall light, and then wall washer and a wall light. So there really isn't much more in this, where we've got more options in the brass series, and then even more options in the Odyssey series. So again, as you can kind of see as I'm working down the line, your options kind of get there. But with Elements brass, you can do probably 85-90% of the jobs that come through your door with everything that's on this list. You don't have to get too fancy with that as we go through as well. And then our Elements line. So Elements actually came out before Elements Brass, but the Elements line, it's got a little bit more of an offering to it. But this is our aluminum alloy product. So again, hitting that price point, it's a powder coated fixture. So there is aluminum underneath this, but we've got a 3-stage and actually a 4-stage process on the knuckle when we're doing the aluminum. So what's cool about these is that these only come with a 15-foot wire lead and then an additional 1-foot flex auxiliary lead. So if you kind of think about this fixture here where I've got 15 feet coming out this way on one side, and then I've got 1 foot coming out this way on the other side, that I can, if I'm doing, like path lights or anything like that, I connect the next fixture to the 1 foot, side here, and then I can kind of carry that all the way through. The other side of, again, if you're doing it back to a hub type situation, and you want to add one more fixture, you can connect it to that 1 foot lead. The ISO, probably one of our most popular undercap products that's out there. What's nice about the ISO is that it's a nice compact size, and it's available in 2 different light engines. So it's available in 140 lumens, kind of for your 5-foot, 6-foot tall walls, and it's also available in 40 lumens, so a lot less output for the 3 to 4 foot walls. So that way you don't have that big bright hot spot as we go through. The light engines are interchangeable, so it's 2 screws, so that way you don't ever have to pull this fixture out. If you want, you got one that's too bright or not bright enough, you can interchange the light engines. Or if something ever happened to any one of these, again, you can just 2 screws, the light engine comes out and it puts it in. So what's great about the ISO, from my point of view, is that it's an integrated type fixture that you can pull the integration out and swap it out as you go. But with these, same thing, drop-in LEDs all the way through, and it's a great kind of flexible way to install a system where you can do what I like to call a hybrid, where I can do a hub system, but still kind of pull off the end when I need to add down the road and things like that. And then our LEDs. So unique lighting systems, we long ago, ever since LEDs first came out, have decided to go with a drop-in style lamp. And so basically what that means is we're still doing, kind of a simpler term, bulbs for our LEDs. The difference is that there are manufacturers out there that are doing integrated versus drop-in. The big difference that I tell a lot of people of why we went with the drop-in LEDs is for a number of reasons. Number one, like I said before, if anything were ever to happen, for instance, and these went out, got burnt out or whatever, within the warranty time, it's 2 prongs. So it's take the shot off, pull the bulb out, and depending on the bulb, whether it's the MR16 or Part 36, these have a 5-year warranty, and it's an over-the-counter replacement on the warranty. We put a date stamp on the back of them, so that way it's easier for people on the counter, that you don't have to go in there with your PO to prove that it's under the 5-year mark. That way you can kind of get that warranty through. If it was an integrated fixture and that fixture went out, you pretty much have to pull that fixture out of the ground to get it warranted. Now, I know a lot of manufacturers out there have said it where, just like the ISO, a couple of screws, I can pull that that module out of the lamp and take it in. But chances are distribution doesn't have that module in stock for warranty. It's got to get sent back to the manufacturer, and you got to go through all that, where there's a good possibility that our LEDs are sitting there to be able to do that warranty over the counter. Now, our warranty on the bulbs is stated that it's warranted from the date of install. So what I tell people on the date stamp on the back, that gets you close enough, right? These things, presumably aren't sitting on the shelf for several years at a time. But if you've got one that's date stamped on the back, that it's still within, well, I didn't install this, except for several times, then at that point you're going to have to find your PO and kind of show us where it's at. But like I said, that date stamp gets you pretty dang close when they go out, or if they were to go out. The other reason why I like the drop-ins is it gives me that flexibility in the field. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I mean, even before I came to Unique, I was doing it as a landscape architect. And even to this day with designs and things I'm working with, sometimes it just doesn't do what I think it's going to do. I go out there and go, oh man, that light's just not bright enough, or even worse, that light's too bright. Well, if that's the case, it's easier for me to go over there, and if I've got a 4 watt and a bullet light and it's too bright, well, it's just easy for me to go over there, pull the 4 watt out, put a 3 watt in, and then it's taken care of. I don't have to really mess with that fixture anymore, and then it's set. So that's the other kind of nice thing I like about having the drop-ins. It gives me a lot more flexibility. Now, moving kind of through the spectrum here, color has just really been, a topic of discussion for just about everybody. So we've got a couple of lamps out there. So we are on our second generation of our Vivid LEDs. And so basically what has happened with the MR16s is we've changed the chip setup. So now we've got more chips on the color side. So, for those of you who have used the Generation 1, we're about 3 times brighter on the colors with Generation 2 than we were with Generation 1. Our white, we had to sacrifice a little bit of the brightness on the white. It has knocked down a little bit, but unless you've got 2 of these side by side, I make the argument you'd have a hard time convincing anyone that our white is dim. It's still a very bright white going through. So for those of you that don't know Vivid, we have an MR16 and now a PAR 36 that is color changing in the bulb. So how this works is a control, Bluetooth control from any smart device straight to the bulb. So there isn't anything special you have to buy. There's no special fixtures. There aren't any special LED or transformers. It'll fit in just about it'll fit in just about any fixture that's out there, and it's independent of the system. So if you've got called a 20 light system that's got all static, unique lighting LEDs, and you only want to have 2 color changing, you can take 2 of those out, pop 2 of these in, and you're good to go, and you can control them from there. So the Generation 2s have a stronger radio system. Like I said, they're a little bit brighter on the white, and they're available in either a 2700 or 3000 white that's static on there. So you do have to pick that when you order them, or when you purchase them, of whether you want the cool white or the warm white as far as your white option. And the newest to the Vivid family is now the PAR 36. It is, let me go back. So the MR16 is a 5 watt out of the box, dimmable all the way down to 1%. And then now we've got a PAR 36 that is 10 watt out of the box. And again, we can dim it down to 1%. And I can tell you, I've got these on my house, and this is, the picture in the background here. You can see these are from the PAR 36s, and they really put out a really nice looking colored light as we go through. So the greens and the blues, everything pops. And I've got them on my house. And in fact, I loved it this year at Christmas time. I was able to go out and change every other light from, one green, one red, all the way through. And I got a lot of compliments and everything. It just made the Christmas time look really, really good. So in addition to the RGB color changing, we also have one that's a CCT color changing, or what I call a white color shift. So again, from that smart device, I have the ability to take from one bulb from 2700 Kelvin, which is that warm white, all the way up to 6500. So this picture here, on both of these pictures, so this is the 2700 on the bottom, and then roughly around 5,000 on the top. So we didn't even hit the 6,500 yet. So this gets even whiter from that point there. What's really nice about this bulb is, again, it's straight Bluetooth from your smart device, phone, right to the fixture. But once you set it, it's set. It will always remember that color no matter what happens. Even if you unplugged it from the system, carried it over across the street, and plugged it into another system, it will remember what color you set it at until you go back and change it again. So ideally, this is a kind of a lamp setting tool that, for me as a designer, I'm going to go out, I'm going to set all these lamps, I'm going to set them to the color that makes the most sense, and then I'm done. I'm not going to tell my homeowner, I'm not going to tell anyone what I did, that this is the color, it's going to look like this forever, and that's how it's going to be. So you can kind of see with this comparison pictures is, the 2700 here makes the whites look real dingy. The blues just aren't popping as compared to this side of the fixture here, where this has got, the blues are real crisp, the whites are white, and just it's got a really good look. Now, the other side of that coin is, as I mentioned in the beginning, is I live in Arizona, and I've got guys and designers that call me up and say, "Oh, Brian, I went out and I put this green LED on this big saguaro cactus, and man, does it look great." Well, to me, that looks cartoonish. When I go out there and I take a look at it, it almost looks as if someone was taking a colored pencil or a colored marker and tried to color over the top of the green saguaro. Where what we're finding with these CCTs, it's actually bringing the green out. So rather than covering it with green, I'm enhancing the green with the CCT. And what I can show you is if you take a look again at these two pictures here on the right, where the light is kind of spilling over, you can see how the 2700 is pulling the browns out of this tree, and it's kind of starting to make it look a little bit dry. Well, this picture was taken in Florida. Jai's, this is one of Jai's projects, and I can assure you that it's not dry, because if you look at this side over here, where the spillover, all that brown has essentially disappeared. And that's basically what's happening with this light. This light is highlighting depending on the color where it's at. So we're finding that the lower level, the 2700s, 2800s, that's bringing out the reds, the browns, the earth tones in anything that we light. So if you've got a feature, wall or something that does kind of have those earth tones, and you want to be at that 2700, pull that color out. As we're moving up the scale, 3000, 4000, 5000, those are bringing out the blues and the greens and really making those pop. So what's really nice about this bulb, which I think is going to be the next big thing, is you can set it. You don't have to go, okay, I want, put it on a plan or predefine it. You go out there and set what looks good to you, what looks good to your homeowner, set it and walk away. So this has just been a fantastic bulb in our lineup. Right now, it's only available in MR16, but we are working to get Part 36s with that as we go through. Now, our transformers. So one thing to talk about the transformers is, again, we've got our own line. So for those of you who don't know, we do have a 60-watt single tap small transformer that's ready to go. So this is good for those smaller projects, kind of the little outdoor kitchens or feature areas or what have you as we're going through. But it's only got a 12-volt tap, built-in photocell, built-in timer. So plug this in, ready to go. Now the timer is pretty simple. So you can either go from dusk to dawn using the photocell, or you got a dial where it's 4, 6, or 8 hours. So it'll come on at dusk, and then you tell it, well, I want one from 8 hours from that point, and it'll just kind of adjust as it goes through. Now, of course, we've got our 150 watt and 300 watt LED transformers. Here's a picture of it here. Those have a 12, 13, 14, and 15 volt tap, which I think is still very, very important. I know there's a lot of transformers out there that are hitting that price point that only have I think it only has a 15 volt tap. For those of you who haven't been to any of my engineering classes, I encourage you to attend one of those, because we talk about the importance of the multi tap still to this day, even with LED. And so that's kind of why we still have those. And then here's the whole line of transformers that we currently have. Just to let you guys know, and it's going to be a slow roll, so it's not going to happen overnight, but we're going to start phasing a lot of these transformers out, specifically the 840 and 1120s, and we're coming out with probably. I was hoping they'd be out by now, but this coronavirus has kind of stalled things a little bit. But hopefully by next month, beginning of next month, we're going to have our ProForce transformers. So the ProForce transformer is going to be a 300 watt and a 600 watt transformer. And what's nice about these is they're going to have up to a 24 volt tap. So we're going to go from 12, there'll be some gaps in there, but all the way up to 24. And what's nice about this is that now we can hit those longer runs. We can count for that voltage drop and really go, with the 24 volt tap, you can really go some long distances and not have to worry about not having enough volts. And that's what we were finding out, that our 840 and 1120 watt transformers, our sales have greatly declined because people just aren't using that much capacity. and for the because of LED, and those that were buying them were buying them for those higher taps. So to kind of get economies of scale here a little bit, we're bringing them out with a 300 watt and a 600 watt transformer. We'll still have the 150 and 300 on the LED side, but then we're going to be coming out with these. Stay tuned for that. I'm thinking, or early to mid next month, we'll start having those available. And then Smart Logic. So Smart Logic is our control system. And so what we are using this for is for on, off, and scheduling. What's really nice about this system is that this is actually a radio frequency, so it's not Bluetooth, it's not Wi-Fi, so we're not hitting any of the limitations that accompany that. So it's 900 megahertz, and we're getting 1,000 feet line of sight as far as our range. Now, keep in mind I said line of sight. That's unobstructed. Shooting this frequency, basically down 1,000-foot hallway. So that gets reduced depending on where you put it. If it's got to go through brick walls or stucco and things like that. But we're still getting a pretty good, actually an exceptional range out of that radio frequency. So how it works is you've got a base unit, and that base unit goes inside the house. It plugs into the router or into the homeowner's modem. So that way you can get an internet signal. And then that is talking directly out to what we call our LPCUAs. So this black box here takes the place of the timer, and then this is what's powering the transformer. So what's nice is I can go into smartlogic.com and I program everything on the website, and I can say, okay, I want the lights to come on at dusk every night and turn off at 10 p.m. And since it's plugged into the cloud, it's plugged into your modem, it knows where it's at in the world, and because it knows where it's at in the world, it will seasonally adjust daily. And so right now the days are getting a little bit longer every day, and the system knows that. So every day it's adjusting its on time to accommodate for how our seasons, our days are getting longer. The other nice thing about this is that it's got two start times. So at my house here, I've got them coming on at dusk, and they turn off around 10:30. My dog wakes me up every morning at 5 a.m., so I've got them coming back on at 5, and then they turn off at dawn. And then I never have to touch them. They just seasonally adjust all year long, and it's fantastic. You can have up to 4 different zones, but we're still zoned by transformers. So that's why we've got that, the smaller transformers. So you can have 4 zones, but you can have multiple LPCUs on a zone. So let's say, for instance, you've got 2 transformers running in your front yard and 2 transformers running in your backyard. You can have those 2 in the front yard on zone 1 and the 2 in the backyard on zone 2. The other nice thing about this is that this unit here is basically, without oversimplifying it too much, this is a 120 volt wireless switch. It's capable of handling 15 amps, which is quite a lot. So you can plug just about anything you want. So it doesn't necessarily have to be regulated to our transformers. So holiday lights, fountain pumps, if you wanted to, you can hook your coffee maker up to this and it'll run it. So it's really nice for that aspect that people can have it all in one location. And then again, you've got controllability from your smart device, turn things on and off. You can go through your smart device and schedule it as well as you go through it. But having that at your fingertips, again, you don't have to be on the job site. So if you're at the store at Home Depot and your wife's at home and wants you to turn things on, you can turn them on from anywhere in the world. So the other side of that coin, if you're in Hawaii and your neighbor calls and says, hey, your lights are on in the middle of the day, you have the ability to either go to your phone or log in and then turn your lights off from anywhere in the world. So it's a really nice setup as you go through. The other nice thing about it too is that these again have a solid state memory. So for me, I've got a couple of these sitting in the same box as my Christmas lights. So then when Christmas comes, I hang my Christmas lights, I plug this in, it recognizes, that, hey, it's back on, it knows where it's at, talks to the system. I don't have to go back and reprogram it. It just remembers that for an entire year, it remembers everything, remembers who it is, and it's ready to go. So it's really, really a robust system. So now we'll talk hubs. This is where we get a lot of questions. What's the difference between a satellite hub and an Intella hub? So our satellite hub's a little bit smaller. and it comes with the fuse and everything, and then the Intellibid's a little bit bigger, and then we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the different methods. So the big thing here is daisy chain. This is what everyone's doing. This is what landscape lighting has been since the invention of landscape lighting. So we go out there and we put the fixtures in the ground, we hang the transformer on the wall, and we grab a big roll of wire and we connect everything together as we go through. The problem with this system is that what's happening is that every single fixture, I'm creating two connections, right? I've got my hot and common. So for this very small 5 light system, I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 connections. Now, a lighting system kind of suffers the same weaknesses as an irrigation system. So, an irrigation system usually fails at the connections, right? It hardly ever fails hardly ever see a main line break in the middle of the main just out of the blue unless something happened, right? It's usually elbows, T's, risers. That's where our failure points happen. Same thing happens with the lighting system. These connections, this is where the failure points usually happen is right there. So now at a 5 light system, I got 10 possible locations for this to fail. And the problem is that we're putting substandard wire connections and we're burying them in the ground, right? So now they have a success, they're successful being pulled apart, or now we can't find them. And the worst part is that a lot of the ones that are being used aren't rated for to be outdoors. So what happens is this thing, because it's electricity, eventually it heats up, and that heat draws in moisture, and I'm pulling moisture in out of the ground, and what's happening is I'm now corroding that wire. And then this, believe it or not, will actually work its way up underneath the sheathing all the way back to the transformer. And this corroded wire will act like a clogged pipe. You just get less efficiency as it goes through, and that's probably why a lot of you guys get those phone calls. Well, I don't know, it worked great for 2 years, and suddenly it stopped working. Chances are it was a substandard, wire nut that was put in that allowed this to happen. The other thing too, just to let you guys know, for those of you that are, have been using these type of wire nuts, these these aren't only intended to be indoors, but they're also intended to be on solid strand wire, like single strand copper wire that's indoors. Because what's happened is there's actually a thread in here, and when I'm putting that on a solid copper, because copper's soft, I'm actually creating threads on the end of that wire. So that way it prevents me from pulling that cap off. Well, when you use these on multi-stranded wire, which we use in low voltage, there's nothing for those threads to grab onto. I'm now just taking these multi-strands and I'm spinning those up and creating a knot at the end. And that's why oftentimes if there's a failure, you'll see the top of these blow out, because I just created a big ball of wire for that electricity to just kind of hang up there and then wear that out. So what we do is we now do the hub wire system to prevent all that. So first off, all the unique lighting, come with a 25-foot wire lead. We pull those back to a single location, and now instead of having 10 connections, I've got 3. Now, the reason why it's 3 instead of 2 is because now I have the ability to add an inline fuse inside that hub. So as you kind of see here, here's the fuse that's in line with the whole fixtures, and then I've got all my hots together, all my commons together, and then I've got these mechanical connections that are now protected in a box. So now I've taken 5 fixtures, reduced it down from 10 connections to 3. Now with the advent of LED, and the loads are so much smaller, and I'm not drawing as much of an amp load or voltage drop, I can do what's called an Intellihub system. So the Intellihub, like I mentioned before, is a little bit bigger box. This acts as your master panel, and then these are the satellite hubs that connect back to that. So what's nice about this again is now I'm taking what would have been 20 fixtures, which would have been 40 connections, and I've reduced it down to 12. And then not only that, I'm now fuse protected at 4 locations. So what's happening now is I'm not asking this transformer to be the sole source of protection of this entire system, right? Because if I didn't have those fused, then I'm protected here. And quite honestly, to talk to a lot of you guys, is if you're using a smaller wire, like I still recommend you still use 12 gauge wire and everything, but if you're using smaller wire, if this wire has an amp rating that's less than the transformer, and I'm willing to bet a steak dinner that most of them are, because this is most of the transformers out there have a 25 amp rating. And if you're using 12 gauge or less, the 12 gauge wire has less than a 25 amp rating. That think about that for a second. If this has a 25 amp rating on the transformer, and this wire only has, call it even a 20 amp rating, and there's a short, and this wire gets maxed out, this piece of wire will actually burn before the amp and before the breaker in this transformer even recognizes it, right? Because if I'm 25 amps, this is only 20, there's a 5 amp gap, and this will burn. So I'd be surprised that there isn't anyone on this call that hasn't been on a job site at some point in time that saw wires either right at the base of the transformer or very close that were burned up and got the question, why didn't the transformer trip? So going back and fusing each of your lines, fusing each of your hubs will help prevent that. So basically what I tell everyone is use fuse per load. Don't fuse per the wire size, fuse per load. So if there's only 5 amps on the hub, put a 5 or a 6 amp, probably give yourself a little bit of freeboard, but put a 6 amp fuse inside that hub, and then as you go all the way through. What's nice about this, once the system's installed, and it's been installed for a while, if this light goes out, then I know I've got a problem at that light. If this whole bank goes out, then I know there's a problem at that hub. If the whole system's out, then either I got a problem at the Intellibid hub or at the transformer. So it helps you tremendously during troubleshooting after the fact. So here's an example of what an Intellihub looks like. So you can see it's a very nice clean connection. Here's the caps that grease filled caps that go over the top, and I'm not burying this in the ground. So I've got a less of a chance of weather getting inside and starting to corrode those wires. And then here's the close-up of what the mechanical connections that are included. So this is what's inside the satellite hub. And then as I mentioned, that black cap is threaded. So it's filled with silicone grease, threaded, goes over the top, and then I'm protected there. This is what's inside of the Intellihub. And so, we got a lot more wires coming in there, so I've got to have a bigger connection and able to go in there. But what's nice, these are mechanical, right? So I got a flathead screwdriver or an Allen wrench. So if ever after the fact I wanted to add, a fixture, I don't have to cut that wire and, ruin the integrity of the system to add a fixture. I can easily just work one in. Same thing here, just take an Allen wrench and then work one in. This over here is a crimp connection. This is a little bit more advanced. It's comes with a special tool. We use this more for kind of the second story type stuff, or kind of more of a permanent connection, because once this is set, you can't undo it. You actually have to cut this one apart. So for those of you that are kind of wondering or asking, if a contractor is doing a really good quality system and they're using DBY connectors, they're spending about $4 a fixture anyways. They're going through $2 a piece going all the way through, versus a hub, you're roughly around 20-25 bucks contractor cost for that there. And that includes everything. So you get the inline fuse, you get the fuses, you get the wire connectors. Really, once you buy a hub, the only thing you need is a pair of wire strippers and a flathead screwdriver in order to get that to work. And then here's an example of what it looks like kind of conceptually from a plan. So, I've got all these fixtures laid out where here's my satellite hubs, back here's my Intellihub hub, so I'm pulling all the way back, and now I've only got 2 runs coming back to my transformer. I don't have this big spaghetti bowl of wires, right back at the transformer trying to connect all these through. And again, can you imagine if we daisy chain this, how much wire would have to be snaked through the ground to connect all this? I wouldn't be able to get all of these on one run, so I'd have several runs coming back to the transformer. So again, this just gives it a nice clean installation, easy to troubleshoot as we go through. So I get this a lot. A lot of people ask the question, well, it's LED now, we don't have to worry about it, about the hub, voltage drops there, and that's like it's partly true. Voltage drop isn't there, but as I kind of showed you is, the hub system, it's less connections in the field. We're now fuse protected, right? We go through this every day. We call it low voltage lighting, or we call it landscape lighting. It's still electricity, so we still need to treat it as such. So we need to have it fused all the way through. I mean, heck, even my car's got fuses all the way through it, and that's low voltage. So we need to fuse protect these in the field. I'll make the argument it's a faster installation as we go through, and as I showed you, it's easier to identify issues by simply having that hub. Okay, so to wrap up here, kind of finish up, as I mentioned before, we here at Unique Lighting, we have a lighting design assistance program. This is available to any contractor, landscape architect, designer that's out there. And basically, we will do as much or as little as you want. So we'll do fixture locations, hub locations, we'll do the wire design, and then we'll actually size the transformer and do voltage drop calcs all the way through. We do all this in AutoCAD. But that doesn't mean you have to send me an AutoCAD drawing. I mean, we can do it in anything, but we do it in AutoCAD so it gets it to scale. So what you get is a good set of construction documents that you can scale from, and you get a good build sheet from. So if you've got a PDF of the site, we can go ahead and build you a plan, or I can do it off of Google Earth. And we do this quite a bit as well. So just about anything that's out there, and then when we're done, you'll actually get a lighting legend that's got the right part numbers, quantities, makes it super easy to bid, makes it super easy to quantify as we go through, and it's easy to kind of show your customer, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is so then if you got to do any phasing or if there's any VE that has to be done, you don't have to tread on your labor hours. You can actually do this basically from the plan. And then if you look at it, I do purposely kind of make it look similar to an irrigation plan, right down to the symbols and everything. And I do that by design because, for those of you who are new to lighting, or especially if you're new to unique lighting, I kind of tell people your newest guy on your newest crew, if he knows how to read a set of irrigation plans, he can certainly install a unique lighting system from there. And then when it's all said and done, you'll get the Wirecalc sheet for every project. I do this. I don't care if it's a 10 light project or a 110 light project. We'll do this on every job. And the reason why we do that is because we understand things change in the field and they change all the time. So that way, if you get this sheet and find out, well, I want to add 5 more lights, you can do the calcs here and go, oh, yeah, I got plenty of room. Got a 500-watt transformer. Yep, I can add 5 more. Or I'm reducing lights. Can I reduce the transformer as well? You'll be able to make that informed decision, not having to guess in the field. So that all comes with SDSP. The best way to submit a plan is to go to our website under our design services page. There's a place to submit it, or you can just email us directly at sdsp@uniquelighting.com. If there's any questions, you can always reach out to me. I'll be happy to walk you through it and get you set up and get you more information on that. And so that is the end of my presentation. I'm going to kind of open. I know there's been a lot of questions coming through, so I think Jai's uh, been kind of answering those.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
So, the one question was, there's no cost initiated with the SDSP program, so that is a complimentary service from Unique to help with the design. And then another question we had a little earlier was, could Smart Logic actually dim the lamps? And I answered no on that. That Smart Logic turns the transformers on and off, but if you're using the smart lamps, you can individually dim them.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So with the SDSP program, it is complimentary, and there's no obligation. So we're not going to be chasing you down. We may ask you. Again, we kind of use this service to help us with our forecasting as well, right? So if I'm doing these plans and I can kind of see, into the future a little bit of when these are coming through, we can make sure we're setting our demand on the factory side to make sure you guys get make sure we've got the products ready for those projects. So we might ask you questions, down the road of, when it's going to go in or when you think it's going to get ordered. And again, if it get, it's no obligation. We're not going to hold you to it, but it helps us kind of, forecast a little bit of, and again, it's complimentary. And then, yes, as Jai mentioned, you can dim at the lamp. So from the Vivid, from your Bluetooth, but not through Smart Logic. Good questions. So yeah, so if there's any more, we're going to hang out here. I know I got another 10 minutes left on the clock here. Kind of like to leave this open for questions. So if there's any questions, go ahead and type them in the box. I didn't have my email up on the screen, but it's in the invite. If you think of anything after the fact, don't hesitate to email me. And if you guys have a pen handy, my phone number is 480-381 6901. You can text me, call me. I'm pretty accessible. I'm not shy of sharing my phone number. So if there's any, like I said, after the fact you think of anything, just go ahead and give me a call. Jai, since I got you on the phone or on the call here, is there anything you want to add as we're waiting for questions to come through? Anything that I kind of
Yeah,
glossed over too quickly?
there was one more that maybe we could talk about just a little bit more about the vivid lamps and also LPCUAs being a meshing network and repeating the signal.
Okay, yeah. So that's great. Since we're doing, we'll talk about the LPCUAs first. So since we're going from 900 megahertz out to the LPCUAs, those are actually repeaters as well. Those will grab the signal and pick it up and resend it as it goes through. So the more LPCUAs have on the job, the stronger that network gets. Now, what's nice about it is I've actually done this a few times. Is I've had some pretty long distances between transformers, so I've actually taken an LPCUA, just plugged it into an outlet in between. There's nothing. It's not running anything. I just plugged it in, hopped it on the system. It's not running any lights, any transformers. It's just kind of there in the corner, but it's picking up that signal and boosting it out to the further reaches that I couldn't reach before. So that's a real nice option with that. So essentially the limits on this are endless. Depending on, as long as you got 120 volt to be able to plug it in. So that's nice. And same thing with the Vivid lamps with the Bluetooth. So as everyone knows, if you're not aware, I'll tell you now, is that you can really only connect one Bluetooth device to your phone, right? I can't connect my headphones and my wife headphones. That's the same thing with the Vivid lamps. So what happens is that your phone grabs the lamp that's closest to you, and you're essentially controlling that lamp, and then that one is then meshing up a Bluetooth mesh network with all the other lamps that are surrounding it. So the one thing I will say is that it is Bluetooth, so I can't give you a range on that because it's situational. It depends on where you're at. What's the foliage, what's the things that are in the way. But they do grab each other as we go through. And there's a way within the system that if you're connected to lamp A and you don't want to be connected to that one, you can force yourself to be connected to any lamp in that network. You don't have to rely on the system to automatically know where you're at, so you can force it to jump it through. But again, everything meshes together and kind of creates that virtual wireless network. Again, depending on the lamp, depending on the LPCUAs, it kind of strengthens that system. Anything else, Jai, that we could go over?
We had one other question. How many lights would you typically put in a satellite hub? And then let's throw it out there for an Natella hub as well.
So for me, just to keep things simple, I like to keep them at 5 maximum on the satellite hub, and about 8 to 9 on the Intella hub. And then on top of that, I like to keep my maximum of 3 satellite hubs per Intella hub. And really, that's just more of two things for me. It's dependent upon on the actual size of the lugs that we give you. You can work more in there if you're really, really patient and you're really, really careful. But I like to keep it to where that's about kind of the best way to get those in without making a mess. The other side of that, it's just kind of more for me. It's the management side, right? I don't want to have so many of these lights pulled back into a hub, and then I don't know if I've got, I've got this big ball of lights and might as well go back to having a daisy chain. I don't know where it's at. So from the management side, it's easier when you keep it at, 5 and 3 and 8 to 9 when it's in the field. And for those of you who aren't doing the hub, you'd actually be surprised how much you can cover with only 5 lights in a hub. I mean, I very rarely, there's times I do 6, and that's just when we're getting kind of in concentrated areas, but you get pretty far, because if you think about it, a hub with a 25-foot wire lead actually gives me a 50-foot reach, right? If I'm going 25 feet in any direction, that's 50 feet, so I can get quite a lot of distance in that realm with that, and it just helps me manage it from the field. If I'm doing a design on a plan for you guys, like engage us through SDSP here or through our lighting design network or design assistance, I tend to go below that. I like to go 4 lights per hub, and then about 6, 7 lights on the Intella hub. And the reason why I do that is it gives the end user, gives the contractor the ability to add lights on the fly without having to redesign it. So if I've only got hub and they decide that I'm going to add a light here, add a light there, I've got that capacity to be able to add it. And Jai, you can back me up. I've never in my experience ever had anyone ask me to remove a light from any job I've designed, but on 90% of them, I've always get asked to add at least 1, 2, 3 more. Can we add a light over there? What about light over there? So I always like to accommodate having a little bit of extra expandability in every system I design.
Well, I haven't seen any new questions come in, so I think we've wrapped up most of the points.
Perfect. All righty. Well, like I said, if you think of anything, feel free to reach out. We'll answer any questions. And then if you want a recording of this, again, reach out to me. I'll give you a link to the recording. I want to thank everyone for joining us on this Friday morning, and everyone have a wonderful weekend.